Welcome to How Do They Afford That, the podcast that peeks into the financial lives of everyday Australians. I'm Michael Thompson. I'm a writer and the co-host of the podcast Fear and Greed Business News. As always, I am with Canna Campbell, financial planner, founder of Sugar Mama TV, the financial literacy platform covering YouTube and podcasts like this one, Instagram, books, threads, TikTok, keynote speeches, plenty more. You're a very busy person, Canna. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Look, I'm going well. Today is an episode I'm actually really looking forward to because it is about you, in a way. It is about your career.
Well, it's not about me, but it's about what goes on behind closed doors.
Okay, that sounds very intriguing. Probably more intriguing than the episode actually is.
I will admit a lot goes on behind closed doors when it comes to financial planning.
Okay, there we go. We're back firmly in the financial planning kind of wheelhouse here. Because you worked for many years with clients as a financial planner, and while you don't see clients on a day-to-day basis kind of anymore, you spent many years working with them and helping them through their kind of financial problems and really
holding their hand.
Holding their hand and helping them to secure their financial future. How does that sound? Yes.
No, that's exactly what I did, and I loved every second of it.
So what I would like you to do today is to cast your mind back, if you will, back to when you're sitting down with clients, perhaps in the first meeting maybe, or the second meeting with them, and we are going to put together a list, because I love lists. And this is the list of the 6 most common questions that you were asked as a financial planner. Like, these are designed. What I want to show with this is the fact that if you have a question about your money, chances are you are not the only person that's wondered that same thing, and that by going through the questions that you were asked in a professional capacity, we can see that these are really common questions that people have, that you don't need to feel as though you're the only one that's wondered what to do with their superannuation or something like that. So these are the questions, the challenges that you have about your own money. You can guarantee others are wondering the same thing. Should we start the list?
Yes, why not?
Should we start with number 1?
Okay. So this isn't so much as a question, but it would be more of a shared emotion.
Ooh.
Most people would walk into my office looking like a deer in the headlights. They were looking scared, embarrassed, and really worried. Like I was about to diagnose them with this horrible disease.
Really?
Yes. And they would think that I was there to sort of judge them. But this is a massive misconception with financial planners. You know, we are there to help fix your financial problems. Otherwise, you wouldn't need us or need our help. So people would often turn up looking absolutely petrified.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put myself on the other side of that as the client going in. And embarrassment is 100% what I feel, because you are, in my case, admitting to all the things that I haven't done. And it is really uncomfortable. And the greatest thing is there's zero judgment.
None whatsoever. This is about solutions.
Yeah.
And it serves no good focusing on that stuff. We're there to fix things and to fix things quickly. And the more you can share, the better the advice is going to be.
How did you put people at ease? This is kind of point 1A on the list. How did you put people at ease in those kind of situations? Did you kind of assure them that, hey, there's no mistakes, there's nothing you haven't done anything wrong, there's no need to be embarrassed here, we will work through this together? Were you quite open about that?
Absolutely. I'd always reassure the client and let them know they were safe.
Yep.
Everything is obviously completely confidential and that they're not alone. This is, the problems I was hearing.
Yeah.
90% of the country are facing the same issues or the same stresses. And I would share maybe an example about myself to just let them know I'm human just like them.
Yeah. And at the end of that first meeting, could you see a difference, a physical difference in them?
Massive. You could see the weight off their shoulders.
Yeah.
And a sense of reassurance and hope.
Yeah.
Because then obviously we'd talk about what we could do and all the different things that potentially might work, and they could see that actually they don't have to just sit in this situation. They can do something about it, and they have a choice and they have options as well. So yes, it would be huge. And it was so nice. One of those sort of intangible values of being a financial planner is getting people over to the other side, of those stresses.
And I know this is starting to sound like an ad for financial planning, and I don't care if it does actually, because get financial advice. It is just the biggest weight off your shoulders as soon as you talk to somebody. And as someone who has kind of been going through this process, goodness me, it makes a difference when you do have those conversations and all of a sudden you feel as though you are not trying to make these decisions on your own anymore and trying to figure it all out, and you are getting some inside information on kind of how things actually work and the risks and the benefits and all these. Goodness me, it makes a difference.
One of the most common things I'd hear, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, is people would say to me, why did I come and see you 15, 20 years ago? Obviously, you've got to be ready to take advice and listen to it and implement it as well. But I would hear that all the time.
How do you deal with, and I know we're drifting a little bit away from our list here, but how did you deal with that when people would say, my biggest issue here is regret. I regret not having done this 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Is it just basically a case of, hey, at least you're doing it now?
It is. It really does depend because sometimes everyone's situation is so different and there are different reasons. For example, people may have not actually had the funds or been able to access advice back 15 years ago.
Yeah.
The important thing is we draw a line in the sand and we move on. And there is no point looking back going, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of great things with the financial planning and getting great quality advice is you can not only catch up, you can actually leapfrog ahead when you combine great investing and also a brilliant financial strategy that includes, debt reduction, tax efficiency, making, the most of the loopholes and opportunities that present themselves. So you can actually, really get back to what you would have been if you had actually gotten advice 15 years ago. That's the value of, strategic advice.
All right. So that's number one on our list, which is not so much a question, more of a common emotion.
Yes, absolutely.
That initial response that people have when they first walked into your office. Number two, what was the next most common question that you were asked?
Am I stuffed financially?
Really?
Yeah. So people would come in, armed with statements and documents, and they would download all of their problems. And most financial planners, their first appointment is a meet and greet. And it is there to download all the problems, things that they're stressed about, worried about, the things that, are playing on their minds and keeping them at night. It's almost like a counselling session. And, they'd show me their statements and they would be looking at me, waiting for me to confirm their worst fears.
How do you deal with that? Because that's a lot of kind of negativity for you to take on board as well? Or is it because you are coming from it from a place of education, of training, having studied and worked in this space, you're hearing those problems and you're actually thinking, these are manageable. I know how to help you get through this?
I would immediately let them know there are solutions.
Okay.
But I'd also be incredibly honest and say, look, at the end of the day, it boils down to you. We can give you some great advice to help fix this situation to the best of yours and my ability. But at the end of the day, you've got to make some decisions and you may need to make some sacrifices along the way, but there are some benefits to doing that. So definitely, I'm not there to confirm people's worst fears. I'm there to create solutions. And that is what a financial planner is at the end of the day. So, people would be, they almost, I think as they got so caught up into the drama and the stress, they had this worst case scenario, almost like tried to manifest it in their head, which I obviously then smashed because that's not, I'm never going to prescribe to that your stuff, there's nothing you can do, you've left it too late theory. That just doesn't exist in financial planning. And it's often, when I actually broke things down with the client, it was often, a block around financial education or a mindset thing around money. And once we cleared that, you could then see in the client's face, okay, I'm actually not as stuffed as I thought I was. Actually, there is hope for me. And I do need to do something about it now. And thank goodness I'm here now knowing and understanding about this because I can see the choice and the options that are available for me. So, I would debunk that theory for them.
And as soon as they've had that mindset kind of shift, you would imagine that they would be more open to working with you, being more kind of open to monitoring their own money. And rather than just putting their heads in the sand, because as soon as you have that mindset of, I'm stuffed, I've completely ruined this, you don't want to open kind of letters from the bank. You don't want to kind of check your bank account. You don't want to see how bad the situation is. So as soon as you kind of debunk that, as soon as you break that mindset, I would imagine it would open everything right up.
And it would definitely tap into a sense of inspiration and motivation because they could see, okay, all right, I actually can do this. There is hope. So let's capitalize on this. And, that's when they would be really efficient in getting the documents back to me or going on to the next stage. And, it's these are all the beautiful parts that come with having a financial planner, which is literally your teammate, cheerleader, coach, physiotherapists, like all those things, wearing a lot of different hats along the way.
As I say these things, like about not wanting to look, clearly I'm speaking from personal experience here.
I'm suspicious of that.
When you're just like, I just don't want to look at my bank account. I don't want to see how bad it is. I don't want to know kind of what the situation is. I don't want to know how bad the credit card is and things like that. And so
I taught you nothing.
Well, yes, you have. Yes, you have. And these are somewhat in the past.
Okay.
There might have been a little bit of overlap though when we were doing the podcast. So, but I didn't reveal that to you at the time because I was going back to that emotion number 1, a little bit embarrassed, a little bit worried, concerned about judgment.
Please, you are safe with me.
No, I'm not. No.
Okay, maybe not. I like to judge you and mock you and
I reckon I'm the only person that you judge for financial errors. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Number 3. Okay, so we've got number 1 was the shared emotion. Number 2 is the question, am I stuffed? What's the third question that people ask?
Do I have to live off the scent of an oily rag? So people would assume that I was going to put them on this like incredibly strict, mean financial diet. And, they'd be scrimping and saving and having to say no to anything fun and fabulous in their life. But no, I would never do that because that's not my business, how and where people spend money. And also people are forgetting that financial planners are real people. They like nice things. They like travel. They have families and they get the juggle of life and how expensive things are, and they're on their own financial journey themselves. So a good financial planner will help you create a guide, maybe doing some budgeting and cash flow work, but they will also understand what your lifestyle is like, what your financial goals are like, but also how do your values sit in with that? Because at the end of the day, if I was to put someone on a ridiculously aggressive budget and, they're going to end up throwing the towel in, they'll quit, and it's waste of money on my advice. You've got to understand that, yes, there will be some sacrifices along the way, but they're for your benefit, not for mine or the financial planners. So, no, it's not about going on a mean budget. At the end of the day, if you want to do that, by all means, but a financial planner will show you how to enjoy spending money safely today, but also at the same time, respecting and honouring what your financial future is going to look like tomorrow. And, a good budget will actually account for that, your lifestyle and your financial goals, and allow them to kind of flow harmoniously.
They are 3 quite varied points, really. Like there are 3 interesting questions that people kind of ask. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get the next 3 on our list of the 6 most common questions that people asked you as a financial planner. I'm curious, are any of them about actual money strategies?
You can't, well, yes, you can talk about strategies, but you definitely cannot be giving personal advice in a conversation in these appointments. So, yes, that would move on to probably the 2nd, 3rd, or maybe even 4th appointment where you start talking about the financial strategies as such. And yes, you would have clients that maybe said, look, I heard about this or I read this. We definitely break it down and go through it from an educational point of view and talk about whether it's relevant or not. But under no circumstances would you start giving advice in that initial appointment. So
people aren't marching into this first appointment and going, I'm a huge FIRE convert, the financial independence retire early movement. They're not walking in and going, this is it. This is 100% what I want to do. That's really not the first meeting kind of thing. They're really kind of working through these almost emotions first. Absolutely. And, I've said this to you before, your financial planner knows, the details of what your doctor would know. Your psychologist knows. They know so much about you, and these appointments are really important. And as the more you can share about yourself, your story, your money mindset, what's important to you, what are your goals and dreams, the better the advice is going to be. So yes, you every now and again you get someone who'd expect you to wrap up the whole financial situation and give financial advice in one appointment. But number one, that's not allowed because it's not compliant. There are so many finer details that need to be researched and gathered before you can actually start giving advice. Okay. All right. I'm very intrigued then as to what the next 3 questions are going to be. We'll take a quick break, come back and find out. Canna, today we are talking about the 6 questions that you were asked most commonly as a financial planner, really in that first meeting when people come in, they sit down with you and then they just start to unload and all of these concerns, all of this angst kind of comes out. We've covered the first 3 questions. What's number 4 on the list? How long will it take? Oh, right.
So, which is actually quite ironic. You were talking about, what happens in that first appointment. So once people understand the value of advice and see that there are different strategies that could help fix their situation, or not necessarily fix their situation, but actually help them, pay off the home sooner, or retire earlier, or, retire with a greater passive income, or, take their investment portfolio to a multi-million-dollar level, for example, they would be so motivated and keen to, get going. And they would say, how long is this advice going to take? Now, a lot of people don't realize the amount of time and care involved. A comprehensive financial plan doesn't just address one area of someone's financial situation, such as their super only. Comprehensive advice goes far and wide. It covers personal insurances, so we'll look into the person's life cover, TPD cover, income protection, trauma cover. It'll look into, their lifestyle goals, such as, children's education, helping children with wedding expenses or a deposit. They'll look into, paying off the mortgage early. They'll be looking into their investment portfolio or property portfolio management. It's very, very detailed process. So, and at the end of the day, when you get your document back, which is the financial plan, it's called a statement of advice, that document can be up to 45 pages long. So it's not something that's whipped up overnight. And I know we live in a world where things are delivered instantly. Mm-hmm. And that's a red flag for me for advice being turned around too quickly, because it means things have been rushed and not everything has been properly considered. But there is a huge amount of research involved in that client situation. So I would get on the phone and call the superannuation companies. I'd have to send over a form that said you can release all the information to me, and I'd ask them a dozen questions about my client's superannuation account so I could work out whether it was right or not. I would then, most of the time, liaise with the client's accountant. Occasionally, I'd have to just touch base with, the lawyer involved as well if there was a family issue going on. So there is a lot of research, fact gathering, consideration. You also need to run a variety of different strategies. So at the end of the day, what goes into that document is the number one best financial plan and strategy for that person and their goals.
That is a fantastic insight into what you do as a financial planner. That is great. In what, kind of 1 minute, that covers so much terrain, and it is not just about getting you super organised. There is so much deeper than that. And
look, obviously you can see a financial planner and say, look, I don't care about anything else in my situation right now. I just want advice on super. Of course you can do that. But again, like if someone's getting advice turned around within 48 hours, run for the hills. That doesn't add up.
Okay. Number 5 we are up to. What was the next question?
All right. How much does this cost and why is it so expensive?
Well, you could really just point to kind of the answer to question number 4 to prove that.
Well,
like that's, to me, that's now understanding the range of services that are provided within this advice. You kind of go, okay, all right, there is a value attached to that.
Well, I haven't even spoken about the value, really. So, if you think about a financial planner now, on average, they cost around about $5,000, sometimes up to $22,000, depending on the situation. And people do get stuck and just fixated on that cost for the initial advice. And that's an initial advice document. That doesn't necessarily include the ongoing advice or the cost of implementation. But think of it this way. If I'm about to invest in a financial plan, or you're about to invest in a financial plan, and say it costs $5,500 with GST, but inside that document is going to tell you how to pay off your home 10 years sooner and save, say, $70,000 in interest. It's also going to show you how to save $7,000 a year in tax. It's going to help you make sure that you can retire on your terms. And it's also going to help make sure that you have a savings plan set up so that you can help your children get into the property market. That $5,000 investment, that's now cheap. So you've got to sort of think of it that way. And a lot of people don't realize running a financial planning practice is very expensive. The legal costs for compliance, staff, rent, all these things really do add up. There's not a huge profit margin when it comes to financial planning, which a lot of people don't realize.
That is... it's interesting, isn't it, when you say then that people fixate on the $5,000 or the $10,000 or whatever it is, and yet if they were buying a car, for instance, they wouldn't think twice necessarily, saying, okay, well, I've got to add on another $5,000 to get the kind of the upgrades or whatever it is that I want. Or they were going on a holiday overseas, suddenly $5,000-$10,000 has gone like that. and you wouldn't think twice about it, right? Yet spending this money can then set you up
For life.
for life.
And also your family, like your future generations. And yeah, absolutely.
That's a good one.
I should also point out, the cost of upfront advice is obviously not tax deductible, but some accountants can structure it if they meet the certain qualifications to have it put towards the cost base. But then obviously the ongoing advice is, for most people, obviously you've got to check with your accountant, but that's then normally tax deductible. So that cost comes down actually.
Number 6, our last one. What is it? Have you got a big one to finish on?
It's a good one.
Okay, go on.
Can you help my friend?
Really?
I ran my financial planning practice, SAS Financial, for 17 years, and I never did any advertising or marketing whatsoever.
It's all word of mouth.
All word of mouth.
Wow.
I would see a client, work with them, and I'd get a phone call. Look, I'm really worried about my friend or my cousin or my uncle or my parents. Do you have capacity to take on some additional clients? Do you mind if I pass your contact details over? So, this is the thing, when you find someone that's good, hold on to them forever. And I say this about accountants and about mortgage brokers as well. When you have found your people and you value their advice, hold on to them. Make sure they stay in business. And, my clients, they all referred. It would be quite funny because I'd see my clients and also know that in the afternoon I'm seeing the neighbours. Obviously there's confidentiality, nothing is ever shared, but, a lot of my clients were connected to each other. It was fantastic. I loved it.
That is incredible. It does show the value of a good financial planner, that you didn't need to advertise, that word of mouth was able to bring in enough business to keep you going and growing for so long.
It meant so much to me. And other planners will say the thing say the same. When you refer me, it fills my heart, knowing that you valued my advice, you respect it. You can see that this is paying off and working for you, and that we are kicking the goals that we set down to achieve together.
That is an awesome list. I've got to say, though, it is entirely different to what I was expecting. I was expecting people would be walking in and being so kind of fixated on a financial goal, for instance, that they would walk in and say, how do I fix my super? Or how do I start investing? Or one of these kind of questions. And instead, it is really so much about it, about the emotion of money, and then kind of getting back to the basics of how much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? That really, that does make sense. That is kind of what you would be worried about. And hopefully, through this conversation today, we might have allayed some of those fears that people would have about approaching a financial planner.
And now they know not to be scared to pick up the phone and make that call and book that appointment in.
I'm still a little bit scared of you.
You should be. I'm cranky at you for not listening to my advice.
Yes, I'm sensing this over a long period of time now. It has been building. All right, Canna, if anybody wants more information, where do they find you?
The best place to reach out directly to me is on Instagram at Sugar Mama TV or at Canna Campbell Official.
And you can hear me every day with Sean Aylmer on Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. Thank you very much for listening to How Do They Afford That? Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And the best thing that you can do is tell somebody else, or better yet, send them this exact episode. Just like Canna was saying about kind of referring people to the financial planner, refer them to this episode so they can start their financial journey as well. Spread the word about How Do They Afford That. Thank you very much for your company. Join us again next week.